Welcome back to another podcast of Heal Without Harm, the podcast for you who is frustrated with the medical system and you're looking to take your health into your own hands. You're advocating for yourself and looking for a better and more natural set of answers. And on today's podcast, we have a guest named Kalene. She's an owner of numerous different things. She does or still currently kind of owns a 10,000 square foot gym, 3 Pilates studios. She's built and sold a hair salon, owner of an amazing gourmet toast and juice bar, which is actually quite tasty, and another fellow friend who is frustrated with the medical system. Kalene, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. And I'm really excited to get into some of these things that we've discussed multiple times off camera. So hopefully we still hit a lot of the main points. But I want to start off with, how did we meet? We've crossed paths numerous different times, but I'm curious how you would tell that story of how we came to know each other.
Yeah. So like you said, we have crossed paths several times, but I would say this came about because one of your patients is a member at my Pilates studio, Body Bar Pilates. You did an interview with her, and I was so excited to listen to her story and her journey. That's something that I love in fitness overall, is like, it's not just about weight loss. It's not just about aesthetics. At Body Bar, we build a community. So as soon as I listened to her podcast and really heard her story and understood her story, I sent her a quick email just celebrating her journey into feeling better in her body. And that's how we got connected.
Yeah. And man, the story I like with her, so this was Tammy, who was on the second episode. And I remember telling her on like her third visit, we usually do a little bit longer plans of care because it takes time to not only change structures of tissue, right, to build strength or build flexibility, but more specifically change the person's habits. That's what we usually run into. Well, this is a lady who, if you tell her to do something, she just does it right away, which I'm not used to.
The best patients.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
The best members.
Visit 3, like we had solved like 3 problems. And I looked at her in the face. I said, I'm so sorry that I sold you such a long plan of care. I'm not used to people doing their stuff right away. And so pretty quickly it turned into maintenance and things like that. And I remember, as we discussed on that podcast, she had some hip pain that got significantly better. But then it seemed like she just had to go with this free trial that she had at Body Bar. And then she was like happily frustrated. She's like, I didn't even want to go do this because I had to go slow down and do all these things. But 3 days in, my hip pain has not came back. And so I'm curious. I know how the body works and everything, and I know what we were doing. But what's the difference on what do you think she was doing right at Pilates, or what was different about Pilates that seemed to like make that last little bit of pain disappear?
Yeah, so I can totally relate to her because in my younger years, I was a bikini competitor. I was all about like high intensity, going all out in every workout. And then as I started getting older, I started feeling the little aches and pains that when I was a personal trainer in my 20s, people would tell me, and I'm like, just work out, move through it, you'll be fine. Well, now I feel it. So with Pilates, I too thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so bored in Pilates. That's not going to change my body at all. It's going to be a waste of my time. And after my first session with Cassie, our lead instructor at Body Bar, she really slowed me down, just like Tammy got to feel. She focused on form, and the moment you slow down your movements, you really tune into the muscles that you're using and you're focusing on form. Maybe you don't feel that intensity in the moment, but later when you leave, like later that day, a couple hours later, you'll be like, oh my God, my obliques, or your hip is starting to open in a way that it never could before because you're finally working the full range of motion.
I think that's a good point. And it resonates well with me because when I'm trying to teach Jake, like, what we're actually doing with physical therapy, I think it all goes back to feeding the nervous system. And not to get too nitty gritty, right, on the science aspect, but you are trying to build a stronger muscle, repetitiously over time. But if the person is doing the right exercise the incorrect way, they don't get what they want out of it. We were just joking yesterday. There was a patient who came in with Allison, and he's like, look how good I'm doing. Look at my 7-way hips. And he like cranks his like way up in the air. And if you're doing it correctly, there's no way you're ever going to get that high. Even someone who's flexible, goes to Body Bar or does yoga, like the hips shouldn't move that way. So he was clearly compensating. And so once she's like, turn this way, lift the hip this way, slow it down. He's like, oh, wow, I really feel that in the hip. And I was telling Jake, I was like, really, we're just trying to like better tune the nervous system so it can control the muscles better. And so I think that's a good point where in Pilates, especially if you have a good coach, because I know there's sometimes where people go do Pilates and I got nothing out of it. But if you have someone who knows what they're doing, slows it down, and is almost willing to have the uncomfortable conversation of like, hey, slow down for me here real quick. Let's critique this. they can get so much more out of it. And then you're teaching that nervous system and or the muscles to actually fire the way they're supposed to, and you're not just burning through 10 reps as quick as possible.
100%. And then I think on the flip side too, something that a lot of people get stuck in fitness when they're doing high intensity, improper form, their central nervous system is on overload, is the inflammation response.
Okay.
You know, it's like that's something that I ran into where in my 20s, I could work out, do almost anything and still kind of eat almost anything and look somewhat good externally. But like if you cut your body open, you would wonder what the heck is going on in there. But once I slowed things down with Pilates, for instance, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I had a surgery and I had to take 8 weeks off. And that was really hard for somebody who's super active. But when I went back, all I could do was our Power Tower class, which is a very slow paced, intentional class. My body transformed so amazingly. Like my flexibility and range of motion came back very quickly. I had the best ab definition that I've ever had. And it's not about the external, but that's a way for you to measure your progress.
Yeah, it's
but
feedback.
Yeah, but then it helped my tennis game. It helped me pick up my nieces and nephews, all from our slowest pace class because I wasn't overloading my central nervous system at the same time, causing inflammation in my body.
That's a really good point. I think with the way I would look at it is less from inflammation. I don't disagree. My brain just goes a different direction. And to me, it's feeding either parasympathetic or sympathetic, right? So fight or flight or rest and digest, which again, neither of us are right or wrong, just different perspective. And I do see with a lot of, I would say a good portion of the people that I work with, there is like this sense of either high anxiety or like I'm always stressed out or I'm always on.
Yeah.
And so I see what you're saying where if they're, although exercise over no exercise is going to be greatly beneficial for those humans, having a good, powerful exercise, but then also counterbalancing that with a slow and controlled movement like Pilates, yoga, something where it's going to downregulate, slow you down, force you to focus on control, which is most of the time extremely uncomfortable for these people mentally, right? They're like, no, just let me do my thing and keep going. I really see how that can downregulate the whole system, get to come down to more of a calm. And then I'm curious, since you've had experience with numerous different workouts, how long would you say is normal for someone when they come into Pilates to like feel the difference? Is it one class that they're like, wow, I feel a lot different? Or is it, twice a week for a couple of weeks? What is that usual enlightening moment coming in?
So Joseph Pilates has a quote that says, in 10 sessions, you'll feel a difference. In 20 sessions, you'll see a difference. I'm pretty certain that's exactly how the quote goes. And it's true. We have had members come in and feel a difference after session number 1 if there's somebody who has some body awareness. But most people coming into a form of fitness, even if they've done fitness for years, don't have the body awareness that we stress so much at Pilates, at Body Bar, because you're just kind of going through the motions and you're not really thinking about what muscle am I engaging? How can I connect my mind to that muscle? Am I moving through the full range of motion? Is my chest open? Are my shoulders down and back? Like all those things that you start to think about when you have done 5, 10, 20 sessions, that's when you're really going to feel the difference.
I like that. I like that a lot. We jumped right into these movements, and so I wanted to kind of review real quick. So we're going to take a small step back. I wanted to go back to what all businesses are these ones that I listed off. Let's go back just a little bit, peel back the layers, and tell the story of Kalene. And so, walk me through what is this gym that you've owned? What are the Pilates studios that you own? And then a little bit of background on kind of how you ended up where you are now with the 3 or 4 businesses you run.
Yeah. So growing up, I wasn't healthy or active. And I went to college. My mom said this is the way to safety and security, financial happiness, all that good stuff in the future. So I always wanted to make my mom happy. I got a math degree, went back and got a master's in business, and worked at Coke Industries right out of school. When I was working at Coke, I was sitting at a desk like most people and just started feeling really gross in my body. A feeling I probably had my entire life since I never played sports, didn't eat healthy, but something in me was like connecting to, I don't feel good. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it is. I don't know how to eat healthy. I don't know how to move. But there was a girl that worked a couple desks down from me and she was super fit. And I was so intimidated by her. She'd walk by my desk every day, ask me what I was eating. And I'm like, don't look at my food, because I'm eating something bad. But she inspired me to start going to the gym. And thankfully, I stayed committed even when I didn't have a partner to go with me.
Which is truly impressive, by the way.
It's hard.
It is. It is. Accountability partners are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, especially in your 20s. All of my friends at that time wanted to go out at night, stay up, drink, and I started changing my life. I'd go to bed earlier. I'd wake up to get to the gym at 5 so I could get to work on time. And thank God I stayed committed to that because it has totally changed my life. So through my personal transformation while I was working at Coke, committing to my fitness practice, which was done all wrong, I was calorie counting, eating far too less calories than I should have. But that's kind of what was on the internet at the time. So it inspired my fitness journey. And I found bikini competitions, which then really taught me about nutrition. We can talk about that.
We'll leave it at that. Talk about nutrition. Goods and bads are all included.
Yeah. So I would say the pros of competing taught me what macronutrients are, what micronutrients are, the benefits of protein, fats, and carbs, how to time them around your workouts if you really have an aesthetic or a performance goal. The downside of it is you do get so immersed in this that, when you get to your competition weight, your stage day, you don't ever want to put that weight back on. You have disordered eating. It's a lot to rebound from. It did a toll on my hormones, so I had to undo that for several years. But it did teach me a lot. So through that, I got really inspired to teach other people. I had people reaching out to me on Facebook. This was before influencers, and I was just posting my journey on Facebook. Here's my workout of the day, or here's a recipe. I had no intention of growing a business out of this, but by sharing my story authentically, people started reaching out to me saying, hey, can you coach me? So while working at Coke, I started a little online nutrition, and I would write workout programs for people. And my clients online started seeing tremendous results. So I was collecting all these before and after photos, then started sharing those. And before you knew it, it grew into a big online business. Yeah. So that was really before online programs were big. So then I got inspired to leave the corporate world. It just wasn't serving me. I didn't like sitting at a desk all day. I enjoyed my job, but I really, really loved helping people.
It seems like, because I work with a lot of people who are desk workers, right? And they're usually in here trying to change something about themselves, and usually it's fitness. And I'm not telling everybody that sits at a desk to go like quit your job. But when you're moonlighting by telling people to move more, do more, eat better, like go to the gym and stuff, but then you sit for 8 hours a day, there's this internal conflict that I would have, and that I see people have, of like, man, I'm not really serving what I'm teaching in a way. Like, you're going before and or after work, but that can only offset so much.
Yeah.
So I see where where you're headed in that discussion.
Yeah. So I decided, at that time they were outsourcing all of HR shared services. I could have been placed somewhere else, but I was like, you know what? This is my sign. I'm young. I don't really have any commitments, no children, nothing. I can try this on my own. So fast forward a little bit, I started renting space from a Andover small gym, and my schedule filled up really fast because of me just authentically sharing my member transformations, my transformations on Facebook. And it was like proof of concept at that point. I enjoyed this so much. Now, I was working crazy hours. My first client would be at 5 a.m. I would often end at 10 p.m. So it wasn't sustainable long term, but in your 20s, you can do anything. But it was proof of concept. So that's when I moved forward and rented out my first space and built Go Time Training. 15-ish years ago. That grew really, really fast. The guy I was dating at the time and he left his job. He became my business partner. We grew this baby so big, so fast. It was the first boutique fitness in Wichita.
Yeah.
Like
we
really
have plenty of now, it seems, but yeah, for sure, when you're the first on the spot.
Yeah, and we really didn't know what we were doing. We were just living our passion. So we were outgrowing our space. We had like 1,400 square feet. We were able to add on a little bit, but we needed even more in a short period, like 2 years, 3 years. Yeah.
And I feel like you're just getting your feet under you and you're already like looking to expand and grow.
Yeah, which is kind of scary, but exciting at the same time. So one of our one of our clients at the time, he was an investment banker, and he said, you guys should really build a building and rent from yourself.
Yeah.
There was some land behind us, so that goes into the commercial real estate building that I own now. We built a 10,000 square foot building, put our gym in there. A couple years later, I sold my portion to him, and then a year or two later, he sold the whole gym to a new owner, but we still own that building. So that's one business that I have. When I did sell it, I did have a 3-year non-compete in fitness. So one thing that I really am passionate about is inspiring women to just be confident. I remember the time in my life when I had no confidence, and when I finally found it, it was like a whole new person came out and I felt unstoppable. So I thought, you know what, I can do this through hair. I was not a licensed cosmetologist. I was in my mid-30s at this time, early 30s, and wanted to start the first blow dry bar in Wichita. We didn't have anything like it. And I also wanted to give hairstylists a place to work where they could make good money, but not have to work 6 or 7 days a week, 10 to 12-hour days.
Yeah, it like is personal training, just a different job, right? Because you're either early mornings, evenings, weekends.
Yeah, but hairstylists too, like those, they do not get enough credit for what they do. So when I opened the salon, I had much more intention of teaching my stylist how to create a good career out of being a hairstylist and not have to slave like I did.
Like they're doing their job, but you're also teaching them really well business aspect.
Yeah. So, then the pandemic hit and I had to take a big pivot. Events were stopping in Wichita, so we became a full service hair salon for women only. I ended up going to cosmetology school as an adult, which was really hard. I had 2 hair salons, 3 residential real estate properties, and then our commercial real estate property at the time. So I had a lot on my plate, but I hit a point where I could not help my team anymore in growing their financial security if I didn't know what they were doing behind the chair. So I took about a year of my life, went to cosmetology school, and focused on luxury hair extensions, trained my team how to do that. And one of my girls on the team, she was 24 at the time, started making almost 6 figures as a hairstylist, working 4 days a week, good hours, not 10 hours a day.
Yeah, not breaking back all the time.
Yeah, she was a sponge. She soaked up all of the number tracking that I did, the goal setting that I did with her. And that's really anything in life. If you're setting goals and you're tracking your metrics, you will continue to grow and succeed.
For sure.
So she was able to buy that business from me when I hit the 5-year mark. And about 4 years into that business, I found Body Bar when my non-compete came up. Body Bar was my first franchise business. And I was just kind of at the stage of my life where I didn't want to recreate the systems. There's a lot to go in when you're opening your own business. But with a franchise, they've created everything. So, and I had already experienced a lot of transformation in my body through Pilates. So I opened Body Bar. A year later, I sold the hair salon to her. And now I've got currently 2 Body Bar locations, one in Wichita, one in Kansas City, working on potentially another one. And then in the interim, I've also opened Toastique. It's a gourmet toast company, but we also have acai bowls, smoothies. It's like the food I love to eat.
Yeah, might as well build a business around it.
Right. And that came from, not only is that the food I love to eat, it's all natural ingredients. It's what I believe in, just like Pilates or fitness in general. But every time I travel, I go to a place like this, and I've always wanted something like it in Wichita. I didn't necessarily want to be the one to bring it, but nobody was. So now I get to consume it and own it and do all the things.
Yeah. So now it's you just go back and forth between eating fantastic food and then
working out,
doing Pilates and Body Bar. Yeah. Sure. This is so cool. So I wrote down a question just as we got started, and I'm curious how you would answer this because, from the outside in, it looks like you've got it all figured out because you just keep doing these things. And I know internally that's probably not how it feels, right?
No.
Every time it's so scary, but people are like, man, you just keep crushing it, right? The pandemic hits and you just pivot. You see a problem and like, oh, I want to help women do this thing and build this business, right? I want to help people live healthier lives. And so I'm going to build a fitness studio around it or buy into a franchise to make it a little bit easier on yourself. And then I see a nutrition aspect. So I'm going to build Tostique, and I'm going to grow like the food aspect. So now people are feeding themselves well and moving themselves well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in your own words, how would you describe what makes you different? Because not everybody does this. Not everybody sees the problem and does something about it. I just listened to a podcast yesterday, and the guy said, I can't remember. I think he said, "Where is the most wealth in the world?" And he said, "It's in a graveyard because people go and die with all these dreams of like these big wealthy ideas." And so, because that's the norm, what makes you different? What do you feel like is different in your brain that allows you to go do these things?
So I don't know what it is in me, but I am not afraid of taking a risk when it comes to business. Neither of my parents were like that. I don't really have any entrepreneurs in my family. There's just something in me that I feel if I'm so passionate about something and I do it myself, that it will just come out of my pores, right? And people will be so attracted to it. I think it comes from proof of concept back when I shared my journey years and years ago and seeing all these people come to me and ask questions. I feel like I've always been kind of like one step ahead of what the trends are, being the first
True.
boutique
That's a good point.
fitness in Wichita. But the thing is, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I never went into Go Time, for example, thinking I'm going to, in 5 years, build a 10,000 square foot building. I'm going to have 10, 15 trainers on staff. We're going to have 500 members. Like I'd never go into a business thinking that. What I go into a business thinking is I'm here to offer a solution and be a problem solver. And the difference is every day in everybody's life, you're solving problems, right? If you're not an entrepreneur, that's fine. But if your washing machine breaks, you have to solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
If
yeah.
your door lock breaks, you have to solve that problem. I'm just solving problems on a bigger scale.
And you're solving the problems you want to solve as opposed to solving the person's problems that you work for, right? Because you work
Right.
at Coke,
Yeah.
and you can get paid and have very dependable hours and things like that and solve the problems that Coke presents to you as a part of their team, or you can go out and solve the ones that mean the most to you, mean the most to your heart, and like the problems that you want to solve.
Yeah, and either way, it's fine. You know, some people, they're so passionate about solving those problems that I was solving at Coke.
Yeah.
And that's what fills their cup. For me, it's just, it happens to be fitness, nutrition. I set a goal for myself in my 20s after seeing really nobody in my family living past mid 70s. I said, I want to live to be 100, but not just live to be 100. I want to have high quality of life. And what does that look like? And now there's so many podcasts out there and so much information on longevity. But I started this back 15 years ago, trying to figure out how can I optimize myself to have a high quality of life until my very last day.
I like that. And I do like the Pilates aspect, and that's where I want to circle back to. And so with the business that we've got here at Natural Wellness, I see a lot of marketing, and I realize that everything in the world boils back down to marketing.
Yeah.
You can have the greatest thing in the world, but if people don't know about it, they're not going to come buy it. And you could also have the crappiest thing in the world, but if you're great at marketing, you can a lot of the time still pull off selling it. And so I've seen what it looks like for someone who knows nothing about us, but just kind of comes across us on Google. And then I've also seen the person who comes in as a really warm lead from another client.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what that looks like in the body bar world or in the Pilates world. And so I'm curious, when you have someone come in, let's say they're like one of the coldest leads you could get. They were eating lunch at the place down the way from you, and they saw it. They're like, I'm just going to walk in there and see what it's about. What is that normal client that's coming in who doesn't know much about you look like? And then what would you consider a success with that person? So kind of like take me through, person walks in, knows not much, and then they've like became quite successful. What does that look like in your eyes?
Yeah, so often that person has seen, maybe they haven't seen Body Bar, but they have seen Pilates online, on Instagram. They've already thought in their head, I want to lose weight, or I want to gain strength, or I just had a baby and I want to work on my pelvic floor. Whatever it is, they've already put those thoughts in their head. And then, maybe they're getting their nails done at the nail salon next door to us, and they see, oh, there's a Pilates studio there. They walk in. It is much harder for a cold lead for us to like break that shell, right?
Yeah, because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
At that point.
They don't know anything about our community. They probably haven't checked out our social media. They don't know anything about our classes. So we really have to walk them through. We always get what's called the GOT, the goal, objective, and the timeline with every prospect walking through our door, because people that come into Body Bar, any of my businesses for that matter, they're not just a number, they're a person. That's why I liked listening to the podcast so much of our member who you interviewed, because I got to know more about her goals. And the more I know about what their goals are, what's held them back in the past, and maybe they are having a baby in 9 months and this is the first time they've worked out, how can we get them to deliver that baby the best that they can? So what's their timeline? When I know that stuff, we can better deliver to them. So that's the first obstacle that we have to overcome, is like getting that information. And then we can tell them and show them in their first class free how Pilates will achieve those goals. And then we just have to wow them in that first class and talk to them about how their experience was after that class and go from there.
So now they continue on, because this is great. You're building a fantastic foundation. And I think that's the big difference. Like you said, truly in any business. In my world, it's PT. How can we like personalize things to you? In your business, it's Pilates. And in some people, it's literally just coffee at Toastique, where it's, what are you looking for? Well, I want to try a new coffee. You know what I mean? And then, they want a coffee. Well, what flavors do you like? And you can go down this exact same path, just plug and play different things. And then you create the best outcome. And if you didn't, when you ask for feedback later on, you know how to tweak it.
Yeah.
And so I think personalization is the one thing that's going to become more and more important over the next 5 to 10 years, especially because more and more things are becoming automated or AI generated. And so keeping that common thread, I think, is what's going to continue to keep you successful moving forward. And I think it's one thing that's oftentimes lacking in the medical system.
Yeah.
Everybody walks in, and honestly, with a lot of doctors, surgeons, specialists, what have you, I would say they almost seem algorithmic. If someone says, "Oh, I feel tingly," and they're like, "Oh, nerve problem, go see a neurologist."
Yeah.
If they feel like burning, it's kind of the same thing. If they say this word, it means go to the cardiologist. If they say this word, it means go there. And it seems that they just don't have enough time to break that down. And so that's what makes me really happy about when you and I started talking, is I could tell not only do you care significantly, but you're very, very meticulous and systematic about how you go about every single thing that you do. And again, I think that's why things become successful. And so I wanted to move a little bit more into like kind of some medical stuff. That's kind of the name of the game here. But I wanted to see, we can either go, have you had physical therapy before in that route? Or we can just say, have you been a user of the medical system, and what problems did you run into? Or what problems did friends or family members run into? Where's your experience with the crappy medical system that we have?
Route 2.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So say that again. The second question.
So
what's my experience been in
the medical system?
Yeah.
So if you've had to go, whether it's to the doctor, a surgeon, a specialist of some sort, what were some of those immediate things that they didn't do, like you do in your businesses?
Yeah.
What were the shortcomings that you observed right off the get-go?
Yeah. So going back to my childhood, I grew up in Hayesville.
Okay.
And I got to tell you this when we first met. I went to Dr. Schneider, who is in prison for the rest of his life. And my experience in the medical field growing up was we'd make an appointment. My mom would take me for a runny nose or sore throat or whatever. We would check in. We would wait in the waiting room for hours sometimes, and then go see the doctor for 5 minutes, if that, tell him what was going on, and always leave with a prescription.
Yeah.
If not one, maybe two.
Very transactional, it seems.
Yes, I was a number, and we were putting masks on whatever was going on. Like, let's just take these pills, you'll be fine. Not thinking about the whole system and the fact that, I'm a child. When you put me on antibiotics over and over again, what's that doing to my gut microbiome? What's that doing to my brain? All of these things. Of course, I don't know that as a child, and that information wasn't out there for my mom to know either. So that was my experience of the medical field growing up. So as an adult, I thought I needed to go into the doctor and for whatever was going on, and I needed to leave with a prescription. My mindset didn't start changing until I went through my fitness competitions, underate, overexercised, and lost my cycle for 6 years. And at the time, in your 20s, I didn't want to have children at that time. It was really nice not to have a cycle. You don't understand, but the women out there will. It was really nice. And I didn't think that there would be any harm to my body for not having it. And the last thing I was thinking about is the damage it might be doing on my hormones. So I did start seeing a doctor though, because I started having like muscle aches and pains, all the little side effects that compound over time if you are a woman and your hormones aren't functioning optimally at whatever age. And this doctor was supposed to be kind of a naturopath, but they wanted to put me on birth control and antidepressants. And I had already started doing some research. It's when podcasts started to become bigger, and I had heard that birth control maybe isn't the best long term, but I didn't know enough about that. And my mom growing up always told me, do not go on antidepressants. Like, if that ever comes about, like, let's talk about alternative routes. So I was very hesitant to it from what my mom had said and listening to birth control podcasts, but these people are the professionals, right? So I would go back with the same symptoms over and over, and this was the only solution that they would give me. So I tried it for 1 month. The antidepressants made me even worse. Like, all I wanted to do was sleep. I had no energy to do anything. I lost my zest for life. I felt terrible.
Which also creates a lot of identity issues, I feel like, especially with a go-getter like yourself.
Yes.
It's very conflicting internally. I have one client right now who he's trying to come back off of them, and I empathize for him because he's like, Clayton, I was late today because I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
This is a guy who normally CrossFit 6 times a week, does yoga 4 times a week, is like eating super well. He's like mid-50s, shredded. Like, and I can just see it in his eyes. He does not feel like himself. Thankfully, he's tapering off now.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, just stick it out for another month, because I know like you are not you right now, and it's due to the medication. So it's unfortunately good to hear that other people have similar experiences, so that I can be a little bit more confirming that's kind of what's probably going on.
Yeah, 100%. And so I felt, again, at that point, I took myself off, quit going to that doctor, because I felt like a number. I started doing enough research on my own to realize that these pills are a mask for whatever's going on. Like, your body gives you these signs and symptoms for a reason. And yes, there is a time that you need medications for certain things. Like, I'm not totally against Western medicine, but I also think when your body is screaming out, like, for example, losing my cycle for 6 years, it's telling me, chill.
Yeah.
Work on your central nervous system, eat some food, gain a little bit of weight. But at that time, nobody told me different.
Mm-hmm.
I was young and naive. So now my expectations of the medical field are so much different. I have a couple people that are very close to me going through extreme cancer scares, and that's hard as a caregiver and a loved one to see that. I want to do the things for myself and work with doctors in whatever form that is to keep my body functioning at its best level, not on medication.
This episode of Heal Without Harm is brought to you by Compelled Fitness, your ultimate partner in Wichita for getting into the best shape of your life. Whether you're aiming for better health, reaching athletic goals, or simply improving your fitness, Compelled Fitness offers programs and services tailored to fit your needs. Don't settle for less than your best. Visit compelled-fitness.com today and start your transformation with expert guidance and personalized fitness. At Compelled Fitness, the goal is helping you become the best version of yourself. Athletes and club teams, load up your gear with Van Gogh Transport Services. Led by local Ironman triathletes, Van Gogh safely ships your bikes, team equipment, or even bulky luggage to out-of-town events. Focus on performance, not logistics. Explore more at vangohtransport.biz. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the way I feel like it's made to be, right? Like, the more I learn about the body, the more you realize the body has a lot of like solves already.
Yeah.
And when those systems aren't working, there's usually a reason. And I'll say this in every single podcast we do, but we always come back to the 4 pillars of like, are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Drinking enough water well? And then managing stress.
Yeah.
And usually it can always boil back to one of those 4 things. I would say in a normal plan of care, those come up and there's usually a flaw somewhere in it. And sometimes we know it, right? Like when you are working like crazy long hours, at the personal training gym, it's understandable that like systems are going to break down. And hopefully we know that that'll be a short term, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to sacrifice my health a little bit so that I can work on the business. And then as it kind of like not plateaus, but like comes to its own self-sustaining, that's when I'll go back and work on myself. And I feel like we all know those things. We all see the writing on the wall, but at the same time, we aren't willing to either ask the right questions. We struggle to find the right provider to help us with it, or make those actual lifestyle changes. And I feel like everybody's against taking pills, but then they're so quick to actually take them when the doctor prescribes them.
Yeah.
And so from the outside looking in, it's like so challenging for me to know what to do with that and know how to help ultimately. But what I really like is more and more people that I'm coming across are having conversations like this where, hey, I'm not against Western medicine. Like, we totally know how to save someone's life, but we also are really good at prolonging death in the sense of just like dragging it out. And we really need to start having longer conversations and deeper conversations on, hold on, before we just give you this medication, have you tried, fill in the blank? Most of the time it's, have you tried walking daily? Have you tried exercising daily? What does your diet look like? Are you drinking enough water? Are you focusing on your nighttime routine so you can get into good deep sleep? Because I guarantee you, I always tell people, if we could just wave a magic wand and fix your sleep, you'd be amazed what else will get better.
100%. Yeah. So going back to like when I finally found the naturopathic doctor that I have been working with for several years, a couple things she said to me that first visit, she asked how my sleep was. And I was like, I jokingly, but seriously said, I'll sleep when I die.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was functioning. Like, I had so much to do. I was so busy. I had to do all these things. I don't have time for sleep. And I was maybe sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, waking up early, then doing a high intensity workout. And then your body is just in this cortisol spiking, high stress state 24/7. And I started working with her right after I came off those antidepressants. And she was like, we need to focus on your sleep. I kind of thought she was a quack, but I was like, all right, I'll listen. And as soon as I got my sleep in check, so many things changed for me. Like, my energy came back. Everything that they were putting me on birth control and antidepressants for all naturally came back just from getting my sleep down.
Can you walk us through like what was that actual process for you personally? Because people will be like, oh, okay, so I'll go to bed at 8 instead of 10. I'll wake up at 6 instead of 4. It's like, it's not that easy, right?
Yeah.
And so what were some of the steps that you took that made you successful in changing your sleep?
It's hard. Because when, just like any habit that you're trying to change, you've been so used to not sleeping for so long. So it's hard to get yourself to go to bed. First thing I had to do is realize I'm a morning person. I am not an evening person. I don't like being up late. So I had to start getting rid of my evening clients at that time because that's not serving me. It's actually stimulating me and keeping me up longer. And then my brain can never shut off. So you kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, like your nighttime routine. So, I prefer to wake up at 4:15 in the morning. That's what works for me. So you have to understand, what does your body like? Some people, their bodies are best waking up at 8 or 9, but then they can work later in the day. And then once you understand that, setting those nighttime routines, not being on your phone, not being on your computer. I do like to watch TV, something brainless at night, that I can just kind of not think. So if that serves you, watch TV or maybe just read a book.
Yeah, I like those. And I think the biggest thing that you're mentioning there, well, actually, there's two. One, it goes back to personalization. I know my wife would love to wake up at 9 every morning. That's where she wakes up. I like to wake up probably at 5 or 6 because I feel like I want to get ahead of the day. Unfortunately, I also feel like I'm a night owl. I like the darkness when everybody calms down, the house gets quiet, and I can go to do what I want. So that's a little bit challenging. But when you start realizing, I'm going to change this one habit and see how my body responds. And I think what's hard is when you're in your 15 to 20, 20 to 25, you truly can't do whatever you want. You can get away with a bunch. But when we had our first daughter, I was trying to figure out when I could work out because the morning wouldn't work for me at the time because of when she would naturally wake up and it would throw a kink in things. So I was like, oh, I'll go work out at 8:30 after she goes to bed. I would come back home at 9:30 and I was like wired. Like I said, it was stimulating. And so it was 11 before I could go to sleep, but I know my sleep was getting hindered. And I was like, well, that didn't work. But I think the big lesson was inputs and outputs. Well, let's try this and see how my body responds. My body didn't like it. You started realizing, hold on, I'm staying up late. If I have clients, if I change that, I can sleep more.
Yeah.
And so it's really just changing the habits or changing the routine will give you that positive feedback of returning to no more medicines, more energy, and all those things. And so I think a takeaway that I want people to have on that is be willing to change your routines and habits and be patient on waiting to see how your body responds. And when you get that positive feedback, then it's a lot easier to keep that new routine.
Yeah, it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks for you to finally see the benefits that your body is experiencing, but maybe you don't feel it yet. I know when I get a good night's sleep now, I feel unstoppable. But my dog has had some issues recently that I'm not getting the best sleep. It's like having a baby, and I feel groggy throughout the day. So you'll start to
used to be.
Yeah, but you'll start to feel like oh my gosh, I actually had energy today. And celebrate those wins. Write them down in a journal so that you remember why you're doing this.
That's what I really like that because it keeps the focus forward. And then
Mhm.
in the evenings, I'm right, it's 8 o'clock. And you're like, I'm going to watch one more Netflix movie, or I'm going to watch one more of this, or I'm going to, scroll just a little bit more. And then you're like, wait, why am I doing this? And you can say, am I willing to give up tomorrow's productivity for one more episode? And it
Yeah.
told me at least I need that evidence in front of me. And so it can help kind of convert that over. Coming on down to some exercise stuff specifically. It seems like you've not only been a user of the gym, you've also trained people in numerous different aspects. And then you still currently coach at Bodybar, correct?
On occasion.
Okay.
I'm currently on the sub list, but
Okay.
I love when I get to teach.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just saw you got to do it. What was it, a 6 a.m. class or something?
Yeah, I taught a 6 a.m. class this week.
Okay, cool. So through there, you've already mentioned tons of myths, right? Like ladies shouldn't be under eating and overtraining and all that kind of stuff. But what are some myths that hit you in the heart that you want to debunk here right now?
Yeah, so I really think the cardio myth, like it's something that I thought I had to do when I first started my fitness journey, that you've got to do cardio, you've got to do hardcore cardio in order to be fit, lose weight if you're looking to lose weight, and be healthy. And that is like the biggest myth for women.
So it's not just burn all the calories you can.
No. We need to get you to build lean muscle, because the more lean muscle mass you have, the more calories you'll burn at rest. And then you just become this fat burning, optimized machine while you're sitting at your 8 to 5 job desk. Your body is just like doing all the work for you. It's burning all the calories for you because you have lean muscle. Muscle is the key to longevity.
Absolutely. And it's the one organ that we can grow.
Yeah.
Because it does a lot metabolically in our body, and you have the power to grow it. So I'm curious, if you're going to do less cardio and you want to build muscle, what's your favorite way to build muscle, or what's one way that you suggest clients build muscle?
So there's a lot of myths out there that Pilates cannot build muscle. And that's one thing that I fell in love with the Body Bar method, is that we have several different class types or offerings. And we've got some that are, the more chill, stretchy type vibe. But then we have some that are strength-based, and they're challenging. Like, I challenge you to come do one sometime.
Oh, I definitely will. I loved seeing Tammy being greatly humbled.
Yeah.
After her
yes, exactly. Greatly humbled. You'll build lean muscle. You will build the strongest core that you've ever had, which will help you when you're 80 and 90 years old. I always think to myself, what I'm doing now, is my 80, 90, 100-year-old self going to benefit from this? Mm-hmm. And core strength is going to be a huge part of that, because you don't want to slip and fall. Muscle is going to be a huge part of that, which will also help with your bone density. So if you do slip and fall, hopefully you won't break a bone. So the cardio myth, I love Pilates as my strength. Sometimes I'll hit the gym and lift weights, but not really much anymore. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's just not for me.
Well, and I've also observed in numerous clients of mine, but even more specifically myself, is I'll go through seasons of interests. Like,
yes.
I know in high school and into college, I never understood why someone would pay to go to a Body Bar or to an Orange Theory or to CrossFit. I'm like, just go to the gym and lift weights. It's not that hard. And now I'm like, can please someone tell me what to do? Like, I know what to do. Can someone do it for me? And then I've also seen like the amount of culture and like benefits of showing up to a place where you've built a good culture of people who are all supporting each other and holding each other accountable and bringing like minds together, but also of different, varieties. And there's tons of benefit there. And I do want to drop in some stats. They're not going to be perfect, but it points out the benefits of building muscle. And so whenever a client comes in, especially an older female who has like fears around osteoporosis, I always tell them, this is somewhat satire, but like, don't fall in the first place. And if you fall, have strong enough bones that they don't break. And so the don't fall in the first place is make sure you continue to work on balance. And the second thing is make sure you have enough muscle and strong enough bones to withstand that fall and just get back up and keep going. And then the last thing is, like you said, like muscles are truly the key to longevity because of what they can do, not only metabolically, but it's less about the muscle holding on with your body, but it's the systems that you have to do to get that muscle.
Yeah.
And that's going to build more bone density and make you stronger and make you live longer ultimately, which goes into the final stat I want to mention is people who resistance train. This is just where the research is, but of course it's the nature of building muscle. People who have more muscle in their body have an all across the board decreased cause of mortality.
Yeah.
So you take someone who resistance trains or works out and you take someone who's not, and you put them both through a car accident, the one who waitlists is going to be more likely to live.
Mhm.
You give them both cancer, the person who waitlists is more likely to live. You put them through fill in the blank, all across the board, they're going to have a better chance of living. So when people want to talk about longevity, like working out, more specifically something that's going to build muscle,
Yeah.
has to be at the top of the list. But tell me one doctor who says that.
Yes.
I know there's going to be some, but like none of them do it. They just say, well, take this medication.
Yeah.
Take this osteoporosis medication. But guess what? If you take the osteoporosis medication, you know what that does? It makes your bones brittle, which make them more likely to break.
Yeah.
And it just kills me how much they will prescribe something that's supposed to help, but then the last side effect listed on the bottle is increased chance of that problem that they're trying to solve causing a bigger problem. And it's just so frustrating.
Cassie, our lead instructor, and I were at like a late lunch, early dinner last night. And we were talking about this. She has Crohn's disease. Hopefully someday you'll get to interview her. She's so inspiring. But, you know, she says all the time, Pilates has saved her life because with her Crohn's, it's really bad. And she shares that openly with our members. So she wouldn't be upset with me talking about it. But we were talking about it yesterday and she said, you know, most people in my shoes would go on the medications that I need to go on. Some of them are along the lines of chemotherapy treatment. And, you know, and she's in her 30s and most people would go on that and then stay on that and not be active. And then it's just like a slippery slope because the doctors say this medicine is going to help you. This is what you need to overcome the disease or the cancer or whatever it is that you have. And they don't talk about the lifestyle factors, the sleep, the movement, the nutrition, all of those things. And she swears that Pilates has saved her life because she stays active. And it does. It helps her recover so much more after a surgery or quicker after a surgery or after she has to take her medication.
Yeah. And I think for those of you who are listening, if you are being prescribed a medication, especially for some sort of chronic issue, right? Like high blood pressure, some sort of antidepressant, high cholesterol, whatever it may be, I think one litmus test or easy question to ask the doctor and or yourself is, what's the long-term goal? Right? Because if you say these things are close to chemotherapy, imagine a 30-year-old taking that. And then you say, okay, well, if I live to be 80, God willing, you want me to take this for 50 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like that immediately brings a lot of reality down where it's like, wow, that's a long time of taking a medication. And do I really need it the whole time? Or can I change my lifestyle to where I actually don't need this medication either ever or until I'm 60? Because then you just cut out 30 years of cost, pills, all those side effects.
Yeah.
Which guess what? All those side effects, don't worry, they have a pill for that too.
Yeah.
So then that 1 turns into 3, that 3 turns into 5. And then you have someone who comes in to me with 12 years of back pain and then their prescription list is 12 medications. And I'm like, good Lord, how do you keep all this straight? And then they talk to me about how they can't, you know, they have to pee every 2 hours throughout the night. Like, well, it's probably because you're taking 2 medications that are actually like diuretics, and then that's leading to interrupted sleep. Well, the interrupted sleep is leading to higher stress, and the higher stress is contributing back to the blood pressure, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
And you're like, good Lord, this is just a Ponzi scheme of medications. So I'm not saying just deny all medication, but just ask the hard questions to your doctor of why are you putting me on this? What is the goal of you putting me on this? What's the long-term goal? If we want to go back, you said with your GOT method of what's your goal, objective, and timeline.
Yeah.
I think most people's timelines are, I don't want to take medication, but if I have to take this temporarily to get me through, or take this while I change my lifestyle, or whatever that may be, that's the tried and true method that I think a lot of people want, but they don't realize how much it is in their control because they have so much faith in their doctor.
Yeah.
Which is not wrong. I feel like you should be able to have faith in your doctor, like you did with your doctor in Hayesville.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're either not well educated, they have different incentives in mind, and all those things. And that's where the trust, unfortunately, has swung back almost too far the other way. And I don't know how to solve that. But I would say, with your experience going through numerous different doctors, trying to find one that fits for you, is there any local doctors that you really like that you would like to mention on here so that somebody can go utilize their services and maybe save them some time?
Yeah, I would say, you know, right now, I've worked with Jolene at Prairie Health and Wellness. I do think she has a very long wait list. I don't know how easy it is to get into her, but she is the one that initially helped me with the 4 pillars of health. And something in me listened to her and actually took her advice, and I've seen tremendous changes in myself. But I really recommend getting your blood work done every single year, having a good doctor, maybe Prairie Health and Wellness or somebody else to read that to you and not just tell you that you fall in the normal. Like, let's look at what optimization is. On top of that, my husband and I have gone and done full body MRIs, CT scans just for preventative health. And thank God we have, because there have been some big findings in that there were no signs and symptoms of. And it could have been very devastating if we didn't go do those things. So those aren't offered in Wichita. One scan that we did is Prenuvo. It's a full body MRI scan. There's no radiation to it. And it can just look inside your body, what is going on, that you can look healthy, like I said at the beginning of this, but if I cut you open, what would be going on? And so this full body MRI can help with that.
Where
And
do you guys have to travel to for that?
So that we go to Scottsdale every year for New Year's. So there happened to be one there, but I think Dallas has them, so you can hop on a direct flight somewhere and hit it up in the same day and come home.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I like that. I like that more and more options are being proactive. I hope that trend keeps going, because I know some of those can be quite costly. And so hopefully as there's more trends going that route, it drives costs down and things like that. Because I think the reason that normal medicine now can be cheap, I say can, is because, well, one, a lot of the doctors are in bed with insurance companies, which will drive down costs because then they can get paid between each other. But then also it's when you have not necessarily a ton of demand, but you have a lot of people buying, it can make the costs go down. So hopefully as we continue to build a better system and more people go for these full body MRIs, more proactive stuff like, oh, I want to go get this so I can change my lifestyle, hopefully costs can keep coming down. Moving on, I want to do a couple quick hot questions. So, first off, what is your favorite food or snack that you could eat nonstop? And I want to add in without any risk of any other problems, because mine is Doritos. And so if you could just indulge on whatever you'd like, what would be one of your favorite snacks?
It's why I open Toastique. I love acai bowls all day, every day. Give me an acai bowl. I'll never get sick of it.
3 toppings that you always have to have mixed in.
Okay, well, those can rotate a bit right
For sure.
now.
You have to keep variety.
Yeah, right now I'm on granola, blueberries, and peanut butter. And it has to be all natural, like blended peanut butter, no additives. I love our peanut butter, and I'm not just saying this because it's mine. I'm obsessed with that peanut butter.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 toppings right now.
So I remember I used to work in an Herbalife shop, and there was one that we make called Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah.
And it was, if I can remember correctly, because I always made it, it was orange cream base. So like the shake was an orange cream base. Then you would put in, I want to say it was butter extract, oats, peanut butter, and blueberries. And like when you think about like, okay, you're going to put orange, blueberries, and peanut butter together, what in the world? And it's like, trust me, you just throw all that together.
Yeah.
It's so good. It tasted just like it.
Yeah. So typically, like if I'm going to Toastique or I'll make a version of this at home, I like the matcha bowl. And I like it because I can throw in spinach and kale and you don't taste it. So you're getting some of your nutrients from that. And then the fruits. But currently I'm on our PB&B bowl. The base is banana, blueberry, almond milk, and then our peanut butter. And then I like the top, I'll add vanilla protein and charcoal to it just for like some gut health and some
I can't
protein.
imagine what the charcoal looks like though.
Oh, it's black.
She's eating a bowl of black. It looks like she's on the naughty list at Christmas time.
Yeah, but it's so good. With my 3 toppings, that's my go-to.
What is one of your most favorite inspirational or funny stories to tell? Whether it's about you, family member, client. If you want some time to think, I can always throw another question at you.
Oh gosh. I'm just going to say this like as a whole. My most inspirational, and I kind of got it all in my feels this week the night before I taught my 6 a.m. class at Body Bar, is simply the community that we have built at Body Bar. And even back at Go Time, the community I got to build there, inspiring all of these people to make healthy changes in their life brings me so much joy. So that night I was scrolling through our Instagram like back 2 years because we're coming up on our 3-year birthday. And I was like, look at all these people that are still members, still committed, and have changed their life. They're the ones that keep inspiring me every single day to keep going.
Yeah. And I see what you're saying, because I'll do similar, looking back through our clientele list with PT, and we get so caught up in the day to day of like, oh, I have to help these people, or I have to go to work, or this, or that. And I think that's a big benefit of social media is you have that like visual journal, whether you posted it for your business, for yourself, someone else, whatever it may be. And then you have those apps like Time Hop and stuff that like remind you like, hey, 5 years ago, you started this thing. And you're like, wow, 5 years has already went by. So I do encourage people to go back and reflect on those things because it will fuel your passion and remind you of how consistent you've stayed and how you're still doing the thing. And I think that's the best kept secret that is actually not a secret at all because we always tell people to do the thing of staying consistent. So I really like that. And I wanted to go back to one other thing was of all the things we've talked about today, or even if we didn't cover it, what do you hope that a listener right now listening takes to heart from this conversation or from the lessons you've had to learn over life?
Yeah, I just feel like you have control of your health and your happiness, and it comes down to your daily habits. You can be an advocate for yourself in the medical field, but if you just stick to the basics, walk, move your body, nourish your body with good food, stay hydrated, try to chill a little bit, sleep. Though if you just stick to those basics, it does not have to be extreme. Like you don't have to go on this extreme diet or do crazy workouts 2-a-days, stick to the basics and you will live a healthy, happy life.
Yeah. The other thing too is with the medical system interactions you've had, I'm sure you've seen some problems, and some of the problems we've actually covered, right? We talked about how they need to be more personalized, or they need to consider the patient more or the client more. But if you had the power to fix one thing with the medical system, what would you go after? What would you try to fix?
Oh gosh, I would fix so much. But I would start from infant. I would start from a baby and implement those lifestyle factors, like educate the parents and get a child on a life program so that you're not undoing things in your 30s and 40s and 50s. If I would have learned how to eat healthy when I was young, and if I would have been just basically active when I was young, I wouldn't have had to undo the things that I had to in my 20s. And it just gets harder as you get older. Those bad habits compound. That's what I would change.
I like that a lot, especially because the information's there.
Yeah.
We know.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I always look at my daughters and I'm like, this is so nice because you're still a blank canvas. Like there's nothing to undo. Like I can build, there's so much power that we have as parents to build a better human below us, right? Like build a better generation below us. And when you talk about like daily habits, like your daily habits make up who you are. The people you hang around make up who you are, and you have the power to change those things. And again, the words we're saying is change. Like you don't have to change anything if you build it the best you can from the start, right? And so I remember here's one implementation that my wife and I have made. And I always worked out at CrossFit, or I would go to the gym, or I'd go, outside of our house and work out because that's the way I like to do it. And then I realized, well, I want my daughters to see me and my wife working out. And so we're starting to work out at home, which is mind numbing to me. But I'm starting to use my daughters who are 1 and 3 as my weights. Like I will drag them around the basement floor as a means of a sled on a blanket. And so I'm working out my legs, or I'll do overhead press or squats or push-ups with them on my back. And I'm like, well, this is actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
And they get to have a lot of fun. I get to spend more time with them, and they get to see what health and fitness looks like. And so trying to figure out ways to build that in is going to be probably the biggest compound interest type thing you could do, because then you don't have to fix things later, or the things you have to fix are way easier later on, and you're setting them up for a good amount of success. Finishing out, where do you want people to find you? Do you want them to find you on Instagram and kind of ask you questions if they have them? Do you want them to show up at Body Bar and try out a Pilates class? Do you want them to come get a piece of amazing avocado toast right next to a bowl of acai? Where can they find more about Kalene?
All of the above.
Deal. Yep, all of them.
If they're interested in trying a Pilates class, their first class is free.
Cool.
They can just go on bodybarpilates.com. We're the East Wichita studio, so we'd love to see you. And then obviously, I'd love to see you at Toastique. We make the best acai bowls. We have cold pressed juice, amazing gourmet toasts. But then you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's Kalene Hoffmann.
Perfect. That sounds good. And then if you want a little bit more about me, my handle on TikTok and Instagram is at the doctor at THEDOCDIR. And this is the podcast for you who's trying to learn a little bit more about how to heal without harm. Thank you.